technology, fabulous, but there has to be some awareness. Someone, if you're not sure, get support. I've done lots of mergers and acquisitions as well. Strange, ex-nurse, technology, but lots of M&A.
Interesting. What would you consider to be the secret to great healthcare?
Oh, look, if I had that secret, I'd be a billionaire.
I was hoping you'd share it.
I worked hard for that role. I sold my soul. I worked day and night, as did my team. I'm never going to get so involved in work that I don't attend things. Suddenly I looked up and realised I'm a CIO and the most isolated person in the world.
Slaven, partner at William Buck, a firm built on the commitment of changing lives that places importance on how they affect positive change for people. Fee's incredible career has never strayed far from a passion for IT, leading through various roles at Grant Thornton, Affinity Health, WorkSafe and Main Group. As an advocate for diversity, equity and inclusion in technology, Fee has also held roles as a board member for Go Girl and Vic ICT for Women. She was also awarded the 2014 Australian ICT Women of the Year, recognising her contributions and commitment to the industry. Fee, thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me.
Tales from Tech Titans. You've had a fascinating career journey that has taken you down some interesting paths to where you've got to today.
Probably not your normal journey, but it's mine.
What's normal, I think. Is
correct.
Beautiful. And it did start somewhere slightly different as an ICU critical healthcare nurse.
Yes, I started as a nurse because I really didn't know what to do when I was leaving school or before school. So showing my age, I did HSC and I grew up in a very small country town. So Mum was sort of keen to say, well, what do you want to do? And it's like, I don't know. But my two sisters were teachers, and that's women were often, teaching, nursing, and you don't know you're falling into that. But I sort of had the conversation, she said, you could do medicine or you could do nursing. And it was like, well, how many years at uni is medicine?
Yeah.
And, 5 or 6 at least. It's like, I'm not going to spend that much time at uni. I could do nursing. I love, blood and guts, and I love a horror movie. No, I can do that.
Yeah.
And now in retrospect, I think it's been 12 or 13 years at uni. I think I could have done maybe medicine if I'd applied myself, but then it wouldn't be the same journey. So I love that I did nursing.
Yeah, right. And you went straight from high school into nursing, or was there some kind of academic or some study requirement to bridge the gap?
No, I went straight from HSC. I actually did my nursing as a diploma of applied science in nursing. So I didn't do a hospital-based. Yeah. But I actually lived in the nurses' home at Austin. Yeah, so I lived in a nurses' home with people who are hospital trained while I did, the academic version of it, because they were phasing out the hospital training.
And did that, so you said you kind of grew up in country Vic.
Yeah.
I assume Vic, sorry, you said the country. Did that see you then move to Melbourne as part of that kind of career move into nursing?
Yes. So I moved to Melbourne for nursing. My nana lived in Essendon and then North Balwyn sort of thing, but I'd never really been in the city by myself. I'd never caught a tram by myself.
Yeah, right.
Hilarious. So all these city people are rolling their eyes, but I'd never done that. But I'd driven a ute, by the age of 8. So it swings and roundabouts of what you can do.
Yeah.
It's different. The city was quite amazing to me, and then you just get used to it.
Yeah. I guess so. You spent 13 years in nursing and went from nurse all the way through to director of nursing. I mean, that's a huge ascent through that time. How did you achieve that?
By being stubborn and thinking I knew what I wanted. So I knew in third year nursing that I wanted to do ICU. I just loved it. In my third year of nursing, I did a 2-week placement in ICU, and I said, this is where I want to be. I love the machines that go ping. I love, the technology, the sickest of the sick, people, as we used to say, trying to die without permission. It just really resonated, and I really liked it. And so when I finished nursing, I actually was successful in several places getting a graduate year, but I chose Austin because I was familiar. I was comfortable. And at that time, we got 2 graduate placements. And my first one, I did neuromedical, which is not what I asked for, but what I got. And I quite enjoyed that. That's a lot of epilepsy, stroke, things like that. And then I got a choice for the second, and I asked for ICU. And they said, oh, graduates don't do ICU. And I said, but why? I would like to do ICU. It's really important. I really love it. And they gave in to me. I think I just nagged them too much. And I did. I loved it. But the reality was, as a graduate, I could do things that were quite specialised. So I could look after specialised equipment, but I couldn't do a drug round because no one was swallowing tablets. So it was a very different graduate year. And at the time, they sent me back to the wards, which I was heartbroken at. But it was the right thing to do because I needed to learn some more general nursing skills. And I actually did cardiothoracics, which is heart-lung. So that helped. And then I went and did my critical care course. So back into ICU. So, I knew what I wanted to do. And nurses often find their way of what specialising area they want. So it's not uncommon. They find surgical or medical or paediatrics. You just find your way.
Yeah. It's interesting, actually, as you were talking about that, I was reflecting. I kind of have a joke with the team sometimes about their personality types. And I kind of say, if I was rolled into A&E and my life depended on, I'd want you looking after me, but I wouldn't want you on a ward for bedside manner. Whereas I would want that person over there to look after me if it was long term. Is that a fair personality classification in nursing? There's some that are built for...
Yes, I think accident emergency is just a absolute different genre. I admire them. I never want to work there. Because it's quite... you never know what's coming in the door. ICU is quite controlled in some ways, and you have a lot of equipment and you're well looked after. This is not always the case, but it's different. But then on the wards, you're doing other things. You get to talk to people, and it's not as traumatic sometimes. So, and I picked to be a specialist in spinal cord injuries and head injuries. So I picked quite traumatic injuries to be my specialising areas, and ones that it wasn't a happy conversation to have. So I don't know why, but I've always been fascinated by spinal cord injuries, and I remained so to this day because I'm still linked with the Spinal Research Institute.
Of course, right, yeah, that's interesting. And you moved from that nursing role up into leadership.
I did. I was working on the wards and loved it. And then there was a 6-month parental leave position as Assistant Director of Nursing. And I thought I'll apply for that. And my husband, who's my biggest supporter, which is fantastic, he said, go for it. And then you can show them why they don't want to do without you. Best words ever. And so I did. And I got appointed permanently in the end. So I was pretty young. I was only 26 at that time. So that was, and I was doing allocations and helping to staff Austin and then the repatriation hospital as well. So they'd amalgamated. So that was some really good lessons on prioritising, how to budget properly. It's different on the wards and it's different in administration. Both don't think each other understand each other. And there's different tensions. So I think it's a really good learning curve.
Yeah. Did you, that's quite early in your career, but did you naturally gravitate to that kind of more leadership role?
I had done some study. You know how I said I was a slow learner and kept going back to university. I had done a critical care course. I had also then done a grade dip in critical care and a grade dip in health admin as well. And I really liked both, but I didn't see the longevity. I couldn't do night duty forever in ICU, and I just wanted to do something different. So the admin path was something that I thought was me. And I think, been quite curious and always wanting to give things a bit of a go. And I always feel I can always go back if I want to. Like, those skills are absolutely reusable. Saying that I am no longer a nurse, I'm not registered. But if I really chose to go back, I could retrain and get my registration again. It wouldn't be an easy thing because they're very talented people and they've learned a lot of skills that I didn't have. But the underlying infrastructure's there.
Yeah. So you spent a lot of time in nursing through that early stage of your career, and we'll come to it later. But it's a part of your career you've kind of come back to as well from a different angle. But I'm just interested. What would you consider to be the secret to great healthcare?
Oh, look, if I had that secret, I'd be a billionaire.
So I was hoping you'd share it.
I mean, great healthcare starts with you. That's the reality. If you look after yourself, if you listen to warning signs, if you eat well, and thank goodness people can't see that I'm preaching something that I'm not necessarily great at doing, things in moderation, which if you knew my chocolate intake, you'd be smiling. But, we do need to look after ourselves. We can prevent a lot of the healthcare we need because we don't need it, because we've prevented it. So if you're at you're obese, unfortunately, and that's where I have a tendency towards leaning, you have to exercise. You may not enjoy it so much, but you have to decrease the amount of sugar you take in. Otherwise, diabetes is definitely going to be a factor, especially if you've got family history. You can blame your parents for a lot of things and your grandparents. Do you have a cardiac history? Do you have a history of stroke? You are born into a genre that you didn't even know you were being born into. So recognise that and think, well, how do I prevent that? So we could have far less people in hospitals now if we took that own health care. But it is hard. It's not an easy thing. But also if there's warning signs, check early. I don't understand women being too scared to do a breast check. You can prevent so much trauma and pain by just checking. So do that.
It's interesting you go to that, because I feel that whether it's because of my age or whether it's because of what's going on in society, I don't know, but preventative health seems to be much more spoken about now, much more encouraged in terms of people having a greater awareness. And I'm interested in the future of how that's going to segue with technology in terms of helping people to have more awareness of kind of what's going on with their health. I guess that remains to be seen. I'm not sure if that's an area where you've had any kind of experience or expertise.
I'm not an expert in these areas, but I think that understanding what you have in your body, how it works, that's a great thing. Google can be semi-helpful and absolutely a disaster for you. I heard a woman on the radio saying she had prostate cancer because she had pain while she was urinating, and she had some other symptom, and I'm sitting there thinking, well, you definitely don't have prostate cancer because you don't have a prostate.
Yes.
But we smile, but then that woman did not know.
Yeah.
So that is smile worthy for a second, and then you think, well, how did we get to this stage that woman didn't know? So we want to educate our kids and be comfortable enough to say words. You should be able to say breast, vagina, things like that. Penis, I want to be equal opportunities. Because they're not scary, and you need to be able to say, I'm a bit worried. Can I check, please? And I always say to people, if you had a bit of pain in your arm or your chest, no accident emergency is going to be grumpy with you going and checking, because that's really important and it could save your life and it could change your life. So always take signs and symptoms seriously and then learn from them. Yeah,
great. So you left nursing after 13 years and you went into the obvious career move next as being a BA.
Not quite so obvious, but I was doing an MBA.
Yes.
And I met a lovely lady who we're still very good friends with, and she was working at a group as a business analyst, and she was wanting to get out of that role and do something else, but I think they'd said to her, well, you need to find someone to fill that role.
Right.
And this was for a group that had 54 hospitals. So we were talking at the MBA, and I said, oh, I'm sure I could do that, which is not true. I didn't actually know what it was, but I was pretty sure I could give it a go. And I was really fortunate. I was interviewed by someone who had a health background but could see the potential. So I was still nursing at that time, and they gave me an opportunity of dropping a lot of money because I was a director of nursing at this stage down to a business analyst, and start afresh.
Yeah.
So, and I did, and it was fantastic.
That was with Main Group. Is that
It
right?
was. So I was really fortunate, and there was 2 people that interviewed me, but one of them didn't have a health background, and he was struggling as such. So he actually left, and then I got promoted within the first 6 months of. Because sometimes it's timing, but also I could speak the health language. I was pretty keen to learn the technology, so I did more study to try and understand, the tech side as well. But I could go in and talk to the health practitioners, so that was helpful.
Yeah. Apart from the health knowledge, what other skills do you think were transferable from nursing into being a BA?
Well, you can prioritise, so that was easy. We call it triaging, but prioritising is the same. I think it's, you're really looking at the overall picture. So that's really important. When you're a BA, you're looking at what is going on in that area, what affects what, and that's really what you do in a trauma situation of what else is affected. It might not be the most obvious thing as such. So that's a part of it. Also, who screams loudest isn't necessarily the person you should worry about it. It's the person who's quietly slumped in the corner. So your stakeholders who have gone quiet, that's a danger warning sign. So this is outside of nursing, that's in IT. So if they've stopped talking to you or stopped asking, that's a problem in itself. Yeah. And I think that I'm not scared to have a difficult conversation. So anything in the careers that I'm having now is far easier than a conversation that I've had with someone's only child parents. Yeah. I just think it's so much easier. So once you've had some really difficult conversations, having a conversation about how difficult a process is or something, though very important to people, it's a different sort of importance.
Yeah.
So there are at least 4 or 5 things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And doing stuff with nothing. Public health doesn't have a lot of cash.
Yes.
So, when you get into private, it's like, oh, there's a bit more. But it's all relative.
Yeah.
What do you want to achieve? How do you want to spend that money? So, I think there's lots of things. They're just different terminologies and convincing people that it is similar.
Look, I think that transferability of skills is really important, because I think there's a lot of people in careers that could be in other careers but actually don't know how to make that crossover. I actually met recently with a head of software engineering, and he trained as a doctor or had done medicine and got to the end and didn't want to be a doctor, but he'd done some coding whilst at university and really enjoyed it. And we got talking about that, and he said he just realised that he had this kind of curious mind and logical mind for solving and putting data together and doing the analysis, and that he'd kind of studied through medicine and it naturally applied into software engineering. But I thought that we need to see more of that, less kind of pigeonholing of people young in their life experience, and encouraging people to be able to take challenges or maybe career opportunities sort of later on.
I think it's not the people who want to do it that want to change. It's 2 groups. Yeah. Those who are employing and the recruiters.
Yes.
People still, every so often I'll get a random email, oh, would you like to be a nurse? It's like, I'm not even registered.
Yeah.
So no. So they want to pigeonhole you. You want an easy answer.
Yeah.
You have to meet with people and say, I can do those things. I can learn your language. Yeah. Because every industry has their own language.
Yeah.
I can do that. Let me show you how. If you've done it once, so I'm more confident now, but when I was trying to change, it was difficult because you have to convince people. And luckily, as I said, the person that employed me could see the opportunity and the potential. Yeah. And she's still a great friend of saying, I can see that. And I like to do the same now. And when people say, will you give me a chance? It's like, yes. Yeah. Yes, I will.
Yeah. And it's interesting, it's often easier to take a chance on someone that's within the system than from outside. And I think in your situation, you clearly, 13 years as a nurse, you were within the system of health.
Yes.
So that transition, you're going to have probably an advantage over someone that's been away from that altogether. You mentioned about your MBA that you studied at Vic University. What kind of inspired you to do that?
I love study.
Yeah.
I'd be a permanent student if I could, but that's not for me. I need to work for a living, apparently, to pay for the holidays and things that I want to do. And so I wanted to do more study, and I really felt that, and health is very good about ongoing learning and education, as many industries are. And I knew that a master's was the next step, but I didn't want to do a master's in nursing because I felt that was going to pigeonhole me. So at that time, MBA was more generic and broad, and I could pick subjects as well. And it was fantastic because I got to meet so many different people. And I studied, with people who were in very different industries. Yeah. And so different to it is now, but we did everything on site. Yeah. And so it was as much about networking and getting to know people and learning from their experiences. So, I made friends there as well, and just, someone from the police. I worked with someone from the Commonwealth Games at the 2001 Games, someone from academia. They're just great because I was nursing. Like, I was quite clear on what nursing was, which was great, but I'd had no experience outside of that field at that time. So it gave you a way of looking at a different perspective. And I did innovation, which is hilarious, at 2001, because I look back and I think we weren't that innovative. But I just was so interested, and we had to create an idea and we had to pitch for it. And, that was just so outside my comfort zone at the time. Yeah. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So sometimes just getting outside of where your comfort zone is and knowing that in the future I wanted to do other things, how would this help me do that?
Yeah, that's great. And I think it's been a theme actually with a lot of the Titans that we've had, where they've done postgraduate study whilst working, and there's been the learning experience, but there's also been the networking experience of meeting people from outside of their own four walls or their kind of their familiar territory, and helping to broaden their knowledge of a different domain that they're maybe less familiar with.
I don't like the word networking much. I think it puts pressure on, and people, I'm inherently extroverted, but people who aren't find that very difficult. Yep. And I think if you go into it thinking differently, I always say it's a meeting where you're going to find friends you didn't know you needed or wanted. Yep. But my friends department always has vacancies. Yeah. So don't put the pressure of I have to meet someone for something.
Yes.
I want to meet someone because I'm genuinely interested and I'd like to know more about you. And then there's no pressure. I'm not asking anything of you. I just want to meet you, and maybe you want to meet me.
That's that kind of notion of going into every interaction with the thought that you're going to learn something new and seeking it from that person, a different perspective or piece of knowledge or information. Yeah. That's a good point. As you're right, I think the word networking, I think like anything, these kind of badges get applied onto situations as a shortcut. Yeah. But you're right, it can be quite intimidating, depending on the context for many people.
Well, it's very intimidating as a woman because in IT, they're nearly all men. Yeah. So you go to a networking event and it's a clump of men. Yeah. And it's like, I say to people that I know all the time, all you have to do is one man break away and say welcome, because a woman walking into a room, maybe 2 or 3 women, 50 men, just do that. I always, there's someone standing by themselves, come and join us, men or women, but particularly women. Yeah. To give them at ease. So that's a way, if any men are listening out here from the technology area, next time you're at a networking, socialising event, if you see a woman standing by herself, go say hello, because it's really hard to be there.
Yeah. That's great advice. I loved your collective noun as well for a group of men in IT, a clump. I think you feel them saying.
Oh, I've offended someone already.
I hope so. Over the next 8 years, you developed your career in technology, predominantly within the healthcare. So there was Main, Affinity, Symbion, which is part of EBOS Group and Symbion. And then actually into sort of government with WorkSafe TAC.
Yes.
So what was kind of going on in that period of your career?
Oh, it was definitely the safety zone, health. and did lots of mergers, acquisitions, was in one group who sold some hospitals, then they became that group. And I followed the same CEO and the same CIO through all three.
Got it.
And became a part of the well-oiled machine as such. And I really enjoyed it. It was quite a frenetic time, but it was great. But it sort of came to a point of, I just thought, I'm doing the same thing. I'm actually doing the same thing now. There was once we'd bought a hospital, sold a hospital, went to another group, got that hospital back, sold it, and I thought, there is a sense of deja vu here. And though I loved it, I knew I had to get out of my safety zone. And my CIO is someone I very much admire. He taught me a huge amount, and he asked me in my review what role I was wanting, and I said yours.
Right.
And I said, but I know yours is taken and you do a really good job. So we both knew then, well, one of us had to leave, basically.
Yeah.
And he wasn't going anywhere.
Yeah.
And I needed to. So, again, we're actually still really good friends. He taught me so much. And I never regret leaving as such, because staying, working with him, he would have taught me so much as well. But I was getting really, really comfortable.
So that was all the way from Maine all the way through to even to WorkSafe?
No,
so WorkSafe was
TAC and WorkSafe, that was a new role joined together, and I thought that I could do public service, but I was wrong.
Okay.
That's not for me.
Why?
I am a woman of action, and I like things to move at a reasonable pace. And both organisations are very clever and do great jobs, but it was quite slow moving. And that was a new organisation joined together of those services.
Yeah.
And it just wasn't for me. I needed to move with some haste, and I just wanted to get things done. And though they did them, it was at a slower pace. And so I was driving them mad and they were driving me mad. So I lasted a good 7 months. And it was good. It was the first role where I wasn't comfortable. I was really uncomfortable. I wasn't getting a sense of achievement. People were nice, but I just didn't feel I'd hit my stride. So I'd had a dream run, and not all stories can be fairy tales, and if they are, I often think, well, what was left out? I think that I chose a bit with haste. I don't regret it because I learnt things along the way, but it wasn't for me.
Yeah, okay. How did you feel when you made that decision?
The decision that it wasn't for me, really annoyed with myself, because why did you choose this? Why didn't you choose better? What are you going to do next? Okay, your career's, all the things, all the securities come up. You've done so well, maybe you could go back. And I could have. There's no reason that I couldn't have gone back. But I'd made those decisions, and I really wanted to keep moving forward. And sometimes you've got to have those, and they're not bumps, they're just a part of the journey. And I hate that term, but it is a part of it, that you can't always be on a trajectory that's completely up. There's sideways, there's backwards, sideways. Follow the white rabbit.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think if your career's been this sort of perfect trajectory, you've probably played it too safe, and you've probably missed opportunities somewhere else, or not seen something else that could have come along and challenged you. Who did you consult to help you make that kind of decision that you're in the wrong place?
Definitely my husband. I had the conversation. The girl that I had met in my MBA and we'd worked with over the years, and another manager who'd actually given me the role at Maine originally, went and had discussions and thought, this is not quite for me. Well, what do you want to do? Do you want to go back? Well, no, I don't. I actually don't. What else would you like to do? What are you good at? Because I'd done lots of mergers and acquisitions as well. Strange, ex-nurse, technology, but lots of M&A experience. So I'm collecting all these little things along the way, and sometimes when you're there, you can't see, and that's why mentoring and getting support and advice can help you and say, actually, you've got quite a few skills or tricks in that kit bag. You should sell those.
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, I should. And I do that a lot with people. It's like, you've got skills.
Yeah.
We just need to word them and show people those skills. So I needed that help and that you're okay.
Yeah. Yeah, great. And you at that point, this is 2008.
I'm going to agree with you because
Okay.
you're looking at the
resume.
dates exactly. So it's like gets a bit hazy from this side.
And that's when you went to Grant Thornton.
Yeah, well, I actually went to William Buck. So William Buck hired me as a consultant, and they hired me for the consulting group.
Yep.
But what people didn't know was they were doing a merger with Grant Thornton, and I was hired to do that.
Yeah.
And so all the people in consulting, apart from one, the partner, didn't actually know that that's actually why I was there. I was on a secret project, which really makes you have lots of friends when you can't tell them that you've just joined and they're working in hospitals and can you help us? And no, I can't. Yeah. But I did the merger of Grant Thornton, Vic and William Buck together.
There you go. So you knew though that it was a secret project?
Oh, absolutely.
Yes,
so
someone let you in on the
secret
as well.
They didn't tell me initially in the interview. They phoned to offer me the job and said, oh, we've got a merger. And I said, oh, where's William Buck going? And they said, how do you know it's us? I said, because you haven't mentioned it once, the name, so it has to be that group.
Yeah.
So I'd already guessed what it was, but I didn't know with whom.
Right.
So I did that project first.
So that makes sense. So when I was looking at your LinkedIn, I think it was, I had 6 months senior manager.
Yes.
And nothing else. That's what it said. I thought it's a bit mysterious.
I did. I became a senior manager. So I'd gone, and I've done this a couple of times. I went from director of nursing to business analyst. I went from general manager to senior manager, and they're all drops in pay and authority as such. But I knew what I needed to do, and sometimes the old adage my mum used to say, if you just work hard, you'll get there, which is not true. That's a motherly thing. But there does come opportunities and ability to have some visibility. Yep. So I love the merger because I was flitting about and recommending how we could do things. And once William Buck joined Grant Thornton, then I was approached to do a project to bring all the Grant Thornton offices together, become Grant Thornton Australia.
Yeah, that's right. So this is what I was following through. So it looked on your LinkedIn at that point you became CIO? Or was that a bit
No, I did the project first.
Right, okay.
If you haven't asked me some regrets, I'm going to tell you a regret.
Okay.
So I did that project, and that was from an IT perspective, pulling all the offices together. We did a national project and putting in, it sounds so old-fashioned, so stop laughing, people who know stuff. We put in a national WAN, put in a standardised operating environment, for 5-6 offices. We had 7 different email systems. We end up with one. So there was a lot of great things. It was over a year of a project. We managed to deliver it on time and on budget. And I recommended they put in a CIO, and I'd pulled in what it looked like, what the services should look like, because there was like 5 managers at the time as well. And then I went back to consulting. Now, what I should have done, Anton, is said, pick me. I'm a great CIO. I know the systems. I know the environment. Pick me.
So why didn't you?
I don't know why, and sometimes it's hard to know why I didn't. I was really pleased with the job I'd done. I'd done a really good job, and I knew they were actually going to appoint someone, but I really thought, because it was the first CIO, they'd want someone with experience as such. Anyway, the COO came and saw me and said, oh, we found a CIO. I said, fantastic. Do you want me to do a handover? And he said, oh, just a short one. She's pretty on top of the requirements, though I think she'll need to rein in some of the time frames. And I looked at him and he goes, it's you.
Right.
And I was so fortunate that that person could see. But I always say, why didn't I put up my hand and say, I want that role? And I was fortunate, but I would say to men and women out there, but particularly women, if there is something that you want or you're interested in, please tell someone. Because then people can be your advocates. in that instance, I was lucky.
Yeah.
But this story could be very different if I hadn't have had that person who believed in me.
Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah. So then I became the first CIO of Grant Thornton.
Got it. And I saw through that so that's great. That's great, by the way. It's great that you were in that position to have that advocate. And it's interesting because you described yourself as lucky. And I often say to people, if you believe that things happen because of luck, you don't know how you can replicate that in the future. And from what I heard from your story is that you went in there, you worked hard, you delivered on the project on time, on budget. So the fact that they selected you for that role, I wouldn't suggest was luck. It was more a product of hard graft, probably your mum's advice.
Yeah,
Work hard.
I think you're right, but it's really hard to say. I worked hard, I showed them my skills. It's easy to say I'm lucky, but you're right. I would say the same to anybody else, but when it's, yourself.
Yeah.
But I think it is true. I worked hard for that role. I sold my soul. I worked day and night, as did my team. I wasn't only myself, it was a great group. So we worked incredibly hard. I was away most of the year travelling, so I gave up a lot for it too.
Yeah.
So it wasn't luck.
Look, and maybe sometimes actually the recognition of someone else saying, and now we'd like to make you the CIO is the icing on the cake, or the proof of the hard work you've put in.
Yeah.
I think sometimes in that situation where you then put your hand up and say, I've done all this hard work and now I'd like to be in charge of it going forward, and someone says, oh, maybe not. Yes. It can kind of take the tarnish off the hard work you put in place to get to that point. Yes. Or it could be taken as maybe a slight or the feedback may be misinterpreted because there may be a gap that you're not quite ready for that next role.
But how will you know?
That's right.
And if you don't ask, and if you don't tell someone, they won't know. And so often in your career, you'll hear people say, oh, I don't think such and such is interested. And my response is, have we asked? Because otherwise people will make decisions for you
yes,
or for others and not involve them. So
yeah, 100%.
Please involve your people. Please involve me. If you think Fee Slaven's not interested, you would be amazed at what she's interested in.
Yeah. I read that in that time at Grant Thornton, you transformed the structure to a customer-centric service.
Yes.
I think is what you described. What did that involve?
Well, actually talking to people.
Right.
God forbid. Asking them, involving people in the projects, saying, is this what you want? The old adage, I use it quite a lot, is, people ask for an apple and we in IT will give you an orange that quacks like a duck and convince you that's what you needed. Yeah. But actually asking them and involving them and saying, we can't do this at this stage, but this is the next step, or this is where we're heading, but you can't get there straight away. It will take time, so let's get there. Yeah. And we really did bring all the IT together. And so the different offices, like Perth had 2 people, but they can't work 24/7. So we had all the service desks come together and run longer extended hours because we had Eastern and Western Seaboard. So you could extend the time of the service desk because we pooled and worked together. Yeah. So you didn't need more staff. You just needed to centralise them and work together. Yeah. And so by bringing the offices together, not just on the infrastructure, but the people, but that meant that those Perth people were no longer answerable to the Perth office. Yeah. They answered to the CIO, which was me, which was a group role. Yeah. So you might be sitting there physically, but you didn't answer them. And that was a really strange concept for the officers, the people involved, and just trying to get that cultural difference, but that you still are in the office and they invite you to things in the Christmas party and that you're still valued and loved, but you still are working for a group IT role. So
that's interesting. There's a couple of things there, isn't there? I think probably in the era we are now post-COVID, that would be easier to assimilate.
Oh, absolutely. Now.
Remote working, hybrid working, it's much more commonplace. Yep. But I've also been through a business experience where you've either got local or central leadership, and it seems to be that kind of debate in dispersed companies. Let's say, or always has been. What is the most effective?
Well, we have group people now. I sit in a local office here in Melbourne at William Buck. Love it. Yeah. We have group people, and I'm determined that they're not isolated. We invite them to everything. We involve them because it can be a lonely thing sitting in an office but not actually belonging to the office. So it always comes down to pretty much everything: people communication, involvement, and we learn things from them, they learn stuff from us, and it's just, being kind. Really, it's not much more than that of being involved. So people sometimes get scared because they're not they're in a group role. Who cares?
Yeah.
They're in a national role or they're doing this. Doesn't matter. I still love a cupcake at morning tea time. So, just involve and you're better off for it.
Yeah, 100%. I saw kind of related to that in that time as well, you had APAC. I'm getting my words confused there. APAC and global exposure across Grant Thornton.
Yeah.
So what did you learn from that experience?
I was invited to join. Grant Thornton International is an overarching part of the team, and I was invited to join the Asia Pacific group of IT people. So that was pretty exciting. We'd never had an Australian IT CIO before. So joined, and we were reasonably sized when you look at some of the environments. So we were in size with a pretty large organisation for them as well. And so got the opportunity to link in there, and only woman, of course. And so met with them. So I got an opportunity to travel a bit, which I was travelling anyway. But we were about to head up and do a hardware project. Again, you laugh. And we're going to buy some laptops. And just like, because I'm a good shopper, if I can get a discount of this % of Australia, if I get some of Asia Pac or all of them together, I can convince someone, and it was HP at the time. We did a proper research group and full tender. I reckon we'll get a better deal. Yeah. So we did.
Yeah.
And anyway, we convinced them, and pretty much in all the countries in the area, there was 13 of us. Yeah. And some of them were tiny. Like Vietnam was tiny, but then we had others that were larger. We had India, so Japan, China. Yeah. So it was like, well, let's all sign up. And so we did that. And this is just buying hardware. It's not rocket science. Yeah. And anyway, Grant Thornton International had some peers of, I think it was 5 CIOs, tech leaders that for how many countries, 50-something countries that Grant Thornton was in, and they then asked me to join. So that was the first time an Australian, first time a woman, first everything. And so I joined that group as well and got to fly internationally and get to know some people from different areas and then try and convince them that they could do the same. And we actually ended up, Grant Thornton International, as a group, we got a central Microsoft deal.
Yeah, right.
Really great. So instead of shopping like a milk bar, we shopped greater. So there were opportunities, but we didn't have merged budgets, so Australia still did their own thing. But it was just opportunities to it's low-hanging fruit. It takes a lot of work, and there was a huge amount of work done by a variety of people. I'm making it sound really easy. Yeah. And all the people who are listening that are in the know, they worked very, very hard. So it was a group effort. Yeah. But when people are enthusiastic and keen and involved, you can get that done.
Yeah, great. What did you kind of experience working with people from different cultures, and how did that shape you?
I learned so much. I learned, the cultures. I'm 5'9", 5'9.5", white female, not small. And, some of the cultures, women are meant to be seen as, bowing lower than men, which is hard when they're 5'1". So I learned skills, but I also had to be adaptable, as did they. Yeah. We were peers. Yeah. So, and I have opinions, and they're no less important than anyone sitting at the table. So learning how to share those opinions, and sometimes I got it right and sometimes I got it wrong, but learning how to best try and approach it. Full frontal is not always the way to go, but being heard at the table and knowing that I deserved that seat at the table. I worked hard to get there. And I was representing Australia as well.
Do you think you broke down some barriers through that work?
Absolutely. They'd never had a female there before, so they'd never had an Australian. And I was really lucky. The English CIO was actually an Aussie.
Right.
So, and, we got some great things. I remember saying to him, emailing him and saying, oh, you had some templates drawn up to do this, would you like to share those? And he said, sure, Fee, they cost us, £80,000 to develop. I'd love to send them through. And I said, no worries, that'd be fantastic. I'll shout you a decent bottle of wine.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, right.
So we got all these benefits because I was prepared to ask, but also I was prepared to give.
Yeah.
More than wine at times, but it was just working collaboratively and also sharing on the other side. So, and it wasn't always easy. There were times it was just so frustrating and things just didn't move because we're so big. So
yeah.
It's not all fun and it's a lot of hard work. And every week I had teleconferences from either midnight to 2 a.m. or 1 a.m. to 3 a.m.
Yes.
They originally asked for them, early stages of video conferencing, and my response is, if you want to see me in my jammies, no worries.
Yeah.
So, but that was hard. It's tiring.
Look, and I think that is an ongoing challenge for global leaders based in Australia.
Mm-hmm.
That unfortunately, our time zone is quite prohibitive or not prohibitive. It just makes things more challenging to work with people in the rest of the world. Look, I'll confess, I didn't realise the connection between William Buck and Grant Thornton. So I was going to ask you a question here, which is, how did you feel about leaving Grant Thornton at that point and going to William Buck? But I'm assuming that now wasn't the case. That was.
I did. I left Grant Thornton.
Okay.
I had done several years in the CIO role, and I was tired. I'd done project after project. I travelled so much that I'd forgotten where nearly I lived. I spent more time in the Qantas Club, which sounds glamorous, but it absolutely isn't. My husband was travelling at the time, and one evening we actually met in the Qantas Club so that we could connect. I was leaving, he was flying in.
Yeah.
And it was just, we don't want to do this anymore. We both had that conversation. We lived in a townhouse. We wanted to get a house. We wanted to get a dog.
Yeah.
And we couldn't do any of that if we were travelling. And we sort of had a semi-serious conversation, which was obviously serious because within 6 months we'd both resigned.
Yeah, right.
He got a new job. I was searching for a new job. We'd bought a house,
Yeah.
or we were, looking for a new house, and we were studying dog breeds.
Yeah.
So I loved my time there, but it was time to go, and it was just right for me. I'd worked so much. I hadn't been doing anything else. And I wasn't happy with doing all the things that I was doing, and I wanted to do other things.
Yeah, I mean, it was 5 years with Grant Thornton.
Yes.
I mean, that's a long tenure. I think the average CIO is about 2.5. I think it's 2 years, 8 months, the average. So you exceeded that, but I think you're right. You can become, particularly on the kind of level you were working at, and being the first person in Australia in that role, you're kind of setting up a precedent for the future.
And look, the person who took after me, I knew, and I said to him, congratulations, that's fantastic. I'm starting to look great. You're going to start to look haggard. That's how it works. Yeah. And for the first 12 months, you can blame me for everything. That's awesome.
Yeah.
But after that, it's your own fault.
Yeah.
But it was good because it was a change. But I did leave without having a role. I wouldn't encourage that. But I had just got to that place. I needed a change and I needed a break. And I think I left it too long. So hindsight's great. And again, I said to you, I would tell you the truth. You sometimes get to the edge and you realise, no, you're actually not on the edge. You're holding on for grim life. Yeah. And you should have done something earlier.
Yeah. Is that something you look for now in other people to advise them when you can see that they're getting close or they're beyond the edge?
Definitely, and asking, are you okay? And even for me, doing some checks of, I need holidays, I need stimulation, I know the things I need now to keep me happy, both in work and personally. So I learned some fantastic lessons along the way, and things that I wouldn't do again. And I've pretty much stuck true to that. And I try and, say to people, these are some of the lessons I learned. Doesn't mean you have to do the same lessons, but I would really like, especially because I am biased towards women, if I can prevent that heartache and prevent some of that angst, then that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I don't want them to go through some of the stuff that I went through, because not all of it's pretty.
Yeah.
We're doing a short conversation, but there's a lot of pain and heartache along the way, and a lot of sacrifice that, you're studying, you're working, you're not at home.
Yeah.
You can't say yes to things. I don't know where I'll be. I could be in Perth. I could be in Queensland. I could be in Miami. Sounds exciting, but I'm just not at home.
Yeah. Yeah, right. You mentioned there's some things or lessons that you put in place that you wouldn't repeat, or you won't allow yourself to kind of get to do again. What are some of that? If maybe you don't have to share, but I'd just be interested myself to know what would be a couple of those things.
I'm happy to share some of them. I'm never going to get so involved in work that I don't attend things. I was so busy I didn't go to any of those dreadful networking events. Because I thought, oh no, I'm busy. I just need to do this. I just need to do that. And suddenly I looked up and realised I'm a CIO and the most isolated person in the world. And I'm not hearing great things that are going on outside. And I'm not meeting new people who can help me because I'm becoming isolated. That reverse mentoring, young people who are showing you stuff. And I love that. So I had created those barriers for myself because I just thought I'd work harder. See, Mum, you weren't right. Working harder doesn't always pay. And so I had stopped going to things and I was exhausted. So, no one wants to go out at 6:00 because I either work longer or I can actually go home. So that's not something I do now. I actually make sure I go to things and involved, and I am passionate about certain things. I am passionate about certain things like diversity, inclusion and other things, and I wasn't going to those things or showing my passions or sharing them because I didn't have time. So I'm never going to do that again. I am never going to travel that much again. Thank you, Qantas. And yes, I used my frequent flyer points for lovely holidays, and my husband loved it as well. But I don't want to do that again.
Yeah.
And so if you said to me, you'd have to travel, because I commuted weekly to Sydney.
Yeah, right.
I don't want to do that again. Thank you. And it was good for a while, but it wasn't what I wanted to do forever.
Yeah, great. Thank you for sharing those things. Again, it's just interesting, isn't it? It's that learning from that experience or understanding. And there's moments in our life where we are happy to do that travel.
Yep.
Or put in that slog. But I think your first I'm never going to do again. I think that's really important because it is easy to think you've got the responsibility, you need to get your head down and keep working to solve this. And actually it removes the joy of why you got there in the first place.
And it's quite naive because you're actually less effective as a leader because you're more isolated. It's actually worth going out and meeting people because you learn things, you meet people, you get to hear about cool stuff.
Yeah.
So you're actually less effective.
Yeah.
And if you'd said that to me at the time, I would have been so offended.
You're right.
Oh my goodness, I would have been absolutely distraught because I was in the depths and I just thought work harder.
Yeah.
But I didn't realise that meeting people and learning new things is a part of work.
Yeah.
That's the important part as well. So if you're in a job that doesn't encourage you to get out at all and doesn't encourage learning and development and isn't encouraging you to meet new people, then how is that trying to get the best out of you or their leadership?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. At that time after you left Grant Thornton, I'm going to say your career exploded, but what I mean by that is it was like I don't know what the right word is for this, but it just kind of went like a mind map. It just went in lots of different directions, all at the same time. And I think I read here you had a period of sort of your own consulting as a CIO. Mm-hmm. You worked with Melbourne City Mission as a business mentor for a number of years. You were presenting at conferences and authoring white papers. Mm-hmm. You became part of Vic ICT for Women, and led their Go for IT, initiative. And at the same time, you then joined William Buck as general manager.
Well, it all fits in. So I did and I knew I needed some guidance. So I did an executive coaching program, and that was fantastic. And I set some goals, and some of the things that I really wanted to do. I really wanted to join a board. I really wanted to write, and I like speaking, as you can tell, and I wanted to be out and about. So during the executive program, I'd written myself some goals. And so then through that, I decided I wanted to talk to people. But how do you have a chance to talk to people without really wanting stuff? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I wrote a white paper, post IT perspective, but non-technical, post mergers and acquisitions. And so got people's opinions and formed that white paper, which was fantastic because I just got to meet people, which was lovely. And through that, then I got to do some consulting work because I met people. And then I'd publish the white paper, and some people asked me to speak to it, which was lovely. So I got to travel to do that. And then a board role came up for Vic ICT, and I was attending those because I'm really passionate about supporting women in technology. And I thought, I'll apply for that. And I was so nervous, and they accepted me, which was fantastic because that was one of my goals. And then the day that they accepted me, they phoned me that night and said, you're really passionate. Would you be interested in doing the director of Go Girl, Go for IT, which encourages girls into STEM?
Yep.
It's a free program, still running today. It's amazing. And I said, absolutely, so keen, lock me in for that. Hung up the phone. I said to my husband, I should check what that is because it sounds like a bit of hard work, but I'm up for it. So I had no idea what it was for, and it was best 6 years as such. And again, just open doors. And I thought I was the worst salesperson in the world, and I am. If you ask me to phone someone to ask them something, it just makes me feel really nauseous. But I'm really good if I'm passionate about something and I really want it. Whether it's at work or personal or whatever, I'll just work to try and get that. And Go Girl, Go for IT gave me that escape, as did Vic ICT for women. Of just, I want there to be more women in IT. I want them to be confident. I want them to be heard.
So that's the epitome of like Simon Sinek, start with why.
Yeah.
That was your purpose, right? And I read this. I think I was reading about Go for ICT. God, it's a bit of a mouthful, isn't it?
We call it Go Girl, so you can stick.
I can just go with Go Girl. Okay. So it was coordinated the largest NFP program for Vic ICT women, which encouraged girls to undertake STEM. The program is unique, sponsored volunteers. During my 6 years as director, increased year-on-year growth of attendance. Over 5,000 girls attended. That is absolutely incredible.
So you set goals. It was run every second year at the time, and it's different now because it was all face-to-face. This is pre-COVID.
Yeah.
We would bus the girls in from all around Victoria. It was a Victorian thing, but if you were in Albury, you got snuck over the border. We didn't care. We paid for those buses. We paid for everything. So we raised money. We had 200-300 volunteers. We had coordinators of different areas. We, tried to show the girls all the different ways, and the teachers, of all the different careers you could have in IT. And girls go, well, I don't like to code. And it's like, well, you don't have to.
Yeah.
Name a career. Garbage person, fashion, police. Name one career that doesn't have technology.
Yeah.
So we're showing them, if you're interested in certain things, you can be IT. Don't be told that's not for you. Don't be told if you don't like maths, you can't have a career. You can. So we get told as girls quite often what we can't do, what's not for us. So this was showing them what is for us, what are the opportunities. And if we get them early enough, year 7, and in fact, I brought it back to grade 5 because we needed to get them earlier.
Yeah.
And if your parents don't like IT, they're not going to encourage you into IT, but it's a great career and you'll always get a job. You can work from anywhere. Some of the things we forecast have now happened because of COVID. So it was just really exciting. I was surrounded by so many great people, and we just got thousands of girls over those years to attend, and it got bigger and better. It was amazing. So, and it's award winning. It's won multiple awards along the way as well. So, the group Vic ICT is now called Women for STEM, and they do that still in a program, and they run it virtually as well and on site. And they're amazing. So bravo to them.
It's interesting just listening to you there reflect. I did some research a few months ago when I'm trying to think, we had someone on the podcast that had started in tech, early 90s, fallen out of tech, and then come back into it and ended up as a CIO. And it was a lady, and we were talking about why she'd left tech. And the research we did actually showed that in the early 90s was actually the peak participation for women in technology. And then as the job become more technical and more about coding and infrastructure and data and cybersecurity, women were starting to turn away from tech as a career, and it became much more male dominated. Now, unfortunately, the curve's kind of going back the other way, but we're still not back at the peak, which is really interesting. We're probably not too far away, and I think that will continue to change because of initiatives like this. But it's just interesting to see that kind of grassroots influence, because I've got this firm belief that children are very influenced by what their family and their parents do. Absolutely. But also what they see on television.
Yeah.
And you see the doctor, the nurse, the fireman, the policeman, on these shows. And I think it's sort of not glamorized, but it's stereotyped for ease of television to watch. I
had this conversation the other day. I worked in hospitals for 12, 13 years. I never saw George Clooney once. Okay? Yeah, it's not real. Yeah. And I had that in a hospital, and they were laughing, going, no, I've looked every ward, there's no George Clooney. Yeah. But it's stereotypical, and, we just need to break that and stop being told what we can't do, because we can do it, and we're good at it, and we don't have to be technical at everything. Yeah. So that's okay as well. We bring different skills, and if you need someone to be able to code, hire them. Yeah. And you always hire people that are smarter than you. Yeah. Do that. So again, but it is difficult at times, and it is difficult when you're the only female in the room, and you have to be quite self-assured. And if you're not, then that it is hard. And many a times I've been the only person in the room, and it takes a lot to stay there.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, again, I'm interested by kind of more, I guess, contemporary technologies, TikTok and YouTube and different platforms, Instagram, of how do we break down those stereotypes, and how do we get more communication through those platforms where young people are spending a significant amount of time, to show them the kind of career or the kind of opportunities that could be ahead in the future for them.
Yeah, I love some of those things. I love an Instagram, and but I also I love it, but it's so much of it's not real. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem, is identifying for kids and people what's real and what's not. And I love seeing my nieces and nephews, and I'm having a great time. No, you're sitting on the couch, sort of thing. And then sometimes we are just having a great time. Yeah. So it's highlighting that. I think people can see that you can be who you want to be. We break down those barriers, but you still have to put the work in. Yes. So, there's no such role when I was young as an influencer. Yeah. My mother was the influencer, because she told you what you needed to do and you did it. But nowadays there are different roles and avenues, and in 10 years, 5 years, there'll be different roles that we've not even thought of again. But, think about what you want to achieve. What's important to you? Do you want to stay stationary? Do you want to be able to travel? Do you want to be able to work between industries? There's so much variety, and it's not just technology, but that's a great base. We're going to need that. And that was the thing. There's longevity. Yeah. There's some roles that there just won't be the longevity there anymore. So it's great to embrace the technology. I love it. But I also think we just need to have the awareness too, because it can be a scary place. And security is obviously, big front, and we hear AI all the time, and it's great, but also you need to understand what that means. And, I just think it is great fun, but there's also a dark side. So go in with your eyes wide open. If you're not, then try and get someone to or show you, and be a bit more aware. So hopefully the kids are are better at it, or even adults. And I say kids, and that's wrong, because if, as a middle-aged woman, if I join an app, I want to see the back end and see, well, what am I being tracked? What's the security on it? But, you find that out through experience. So having someone to help you, because there's a lot of parents, grandparents, aunts and uncles that are on Facebook that probably didn't understand how it worked because, someone set it up for them, but they had no idea what was going on in the background. So technology, fabulous, but there has to be some awareness. Someone, if you're not sure, get support.
Well, the risk is the risk is growing quicker than the technology is evolving, right? Or our ability to use the technology is evolving. It's the risk is growing much faster in that sense.
I think also that there's very clever people that are they have malicious intent.
Yeah.
They get paid a lot of money to have malicious intent. We smile that, the help desk for ransomware is better than some of our major corporations. They could learn a lesson or two from the help desk of the ransomware. But that's sad. Yeah. That's how many calls of ransomware there is. And it damages people. It hurts people's lives. It can put their lives at risk.
Yes.
So, that they're targeting industries. And I work in 2 industries, financial services and health, and they're the top 2.
Yeah.
You do not want your medical history splashed around the internet. So there is no other reason but malicious intent. And I find that really sad, and we have to work so hard to prevent that. And that's, millions, trillions of dollars across industries just to keep people as safe as we can.
Yeah.
It is what it is, but it's just, we didn't have to think about that a long time ago, and now we do.
Yeah, of course, that's right. Yeah, well,
that money could go to better things.
The sphere of our life has grown enormously. I was even thinking when you were talking about that role at Grant Thornton and working all hours and the travel and so forth that you were doing. Well, that was probably partly to do with some of the modernisation of technology that enabled, Blackberries and smartphones and laptops and internet connections. If you think about the world of business, say pre-2000, most people rocked up to their office, they turned on a computer, they did their job, they turned it off, they went home, they didn't think about work until they returned the next day. We've created all these things that give us work-life balance, but actually, arguably, they've blurred the boundaries a lot more.
I think there's definitely blurred boundaries. You're showing your age because you said BlackBerry, which made me laugh because I definitely had one of those. I think there's absolute benefits. I love that you can work from anywhere. I just love it. And I've got some team that work off-site for different reasons, and it's fantastic. Great. Yeah. But I also, lament that I used to think that, I had to answer emails at 12 o'clock. And I once had I saved up my emails when I was doing the teleconferences, and I'd answer, and I thought I was so efficient. Again, remember, I had no insight. And someone answered me at 1 o'clock in the morning. And I said, "What are you doing? Get off email. You should be in bed." "Oh, well, I saw you on the email and I wanted to answer you." And the next day I spoke to him and he said, "I just feel a bit of pressure because you're doing emails at 1 and 2 in the morning." I said, "Because I'm on a teleconference." And he said, "Oh, yeah, but you work so hard." And I never sent another email overnight again.
Yeah.
Because I did not realise that my thought of efficiency was putting pressure on my people. It never crossed my mind.
Yeah.
So I was doing what worked for me. It absolutely did not work for my team. And I stopped it. And I don't do it now because I learned.
And that's learning about boundaries and I guess modelling the right behaviours as well.
Yeah.
I had a similar experience actually. I had two part-time working mums as directors for me in the UK. And I would email them this during my working day, as you do, and it would be a day when it wasn't one of their working days, but they'd always respond within, say, 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And I remember having a conversation saying, why do you respond? And I said, well, because even though we're not working, we kind of feel guilty, or we feel a pressure that we should be present or responding. I said, well, I never expect it. But my takeaway was I'll stop emailing you, or I'll use the tech to schedule that to go when you are back at work.
That's right.
Because I'm not intentionally putting that pressure on you to respond. I'm doing it because it's on my mind and I've got a question and I know you answer it next time I see you. I didn't need an answer in that moment.
But how selfish are we now, looking back, we had something on our mind, so we put it in an email and sent it off, and then it's not our problem anymore.
Yeah.
And that's not what we were thinking, but that's the intent.
That's right.
So then when someone receives it at 4 a.m. in the morning, it's like, oh my God, she wants this urgently. No, she doesn't. She's just listening to someone ramble on in German, sort of thing. No, and I didn't have that insight.
Yeah.
So, but now I do, and I don't do it.
Yes.
So, and then I also think now, unless you're overseas, because time zones, I get that. If you're sending emails at 12 or 1, why? And sometimes because mum and dad, it's the only quiet time they get, and they want to be home for bath time and dinner, and I think, good on you.
Yeah.
But then other times I think, no, that's not important. That can wait. So we just have to work out what the levers are, because if spending that time with the kids is so important, you want to work then from 11 to 12, that's great. I want to support that. But know that there won't be people on the other side necessarily answering you.
It's actually interesting. I was on the train this morning. I get quite an early train from down the coast. So it was about 6:30, 6:45, and I was firing off some emails as you did, responding to emails. But I noticed as I was typing them, it would pop up and say, "Do you want to schedule this to send at 8 o'clock?" So Outlook actually prompted me to just check. Emailing at this time in the morning was my takeaway. But I thought actually that's really cool. That's really cool that the tech and those kind of things are coming in, because I don't want someone waking up first thing and thinking, oh God, he emailed me half an hour ago just because I got an early train isn't
and
their
why
issue.
wouldn't you? Like, I love that about the tech. That's for good, not evil.
Exactly right. And it's interesting, we've got a lot obviously going on at the moment in legislation around right to disconnect, which I think, I actually feel sad about right to disconnect, because I feel that it means that we've failed as leaders, or businesses failed to respect the relationship that they have with their employees, that it needs to be legislated.
Yeah, and once we legislate things, it has to become black and white, and all the ambiguity that you can rely on, with good people sort of goes out the door, and those values and the culture and trust. But then some organisations need that. They clearly need that. So I think it's sad, but I think obviously there's a pressure, and people do feel that they have to answer, or, that if there's someone's calling them at 11 o'clock at night, if you're on call, well, you're on call.
Yes.
But if you're not, do you need to be called as such? So, and again, there is no right nor wrong, really. It's trying to do the best thing by your people, the firm, your culture, just working it out. I would not be texting, people at 11 o'clock at night generally, unless, someone says, are you there? My response is, how can I help you? Yeah. Because if someone's reaching out, there might be a reason why.
Yeah, that's right.
So, but they know they can.
That's right.
They have permission to do so.
Yes. Boundaries again, isn't it? It comes back to understanding what those look like. We've gone way off track, right? Because that's right. That's been good off track. William Buck. So how did you end up at William Buck, and what was that connection?
Well, someone that I worked with at the original William Buck, then Grant Thornton, had gone back to William Buck, which was a different group who'd taken on their name, contacted me and said they're looking for a general manager, and which was great, because I wasn't looking for an IT-specific role. I thought that I would want to do something more.
Right.
I really liked the IT, but I really liked dealing with lots of groups of people. And I found that IT could be quite a bit isolating, So the general manager was in charge of people and culture, IT, marketing, finance, admin, and a few other groups. And that really interested me, because there were areas that I just hadn't dealt with before. And so I went and had to talk to them. They're great people. I already knew they had a great basis. And so I started there originally as the general manager.
Did you find yourself kind of gravitating back to tech?
I still do. As I'm forever. I don't like paper. I like tech. How do we automate this, digitise it? Digital automation and standardisation, the old DAS. Let's make that happen. So, and I love, one of the things is that all those groups that I named, we're working together in our team. Our team is called Marvel because we're marvelous and we're superheroes. But I expect them to work together. And so if you were to have, for example, an IT outage, it would be marketing or HR or someone like that who would help. They could do the comms. So you can focus on that. Or if P&C are onboarding, how do we make that more digital, more automated, less data entry? And just really encouraging those sort of behaviours. So absolutely, it's not independent. It can all be together. There are some things that are still manual, of course, and we've got a long way to go, but people are really keen and interested in doing that. So, and the less data entry you have to do, the happier people are.
Yeah. So we talked earlier about how coming from a background in nursing and healthcare enabled you to set you up for success in technology. Then you've gone from technology into a more kind of broad business role, operations role. So how has that background in technology enabled you to be successful in that role?
Well, I'm forever asking, can we do something different in this space? How could is there something we could utilise or use? I think just sometimes being that curious of nature or looking outside the box or thinking there has to be a better way. Because sometimes when you're smaller, you're doing something, it's easy to do, but as you get bigger, it's hard because you've just made it manual or you've just put in some workarounds and all the things, you've got different pockets of applications and how does that all come together? And I think all those things have happened to every organisation and now it's being able to say, how do we do things better?
Yeah.
And when I first joined, I was so fortunate, and we're not using that word lucky, but this was a matter of timing. The second year I was there, all their server and SAN was sort of up for replacement. It's like, no, we're just going to go to the cloud.
Yeah.
Bang, we went. And we were quite early adopters, but why wouldn't we? It was just perfect timing.
Yeah.
And so that allowed us then to do other things. So, and to be fair, Emmbr has always been supportive of doing projects and allowed us, in all the areas. They may have some technology base, but allowed us to do other things. And we were only saying the other day when COVID hit, we went off-site pretty seamlessly. And, we did overnight success because we'd done 5 years of projects behind because they had the faith that all those things in different areas could help. And they did.
Yeah.
And still, all that comes down to people.
Yeah.
They were prepared to do it, prepared to learn new things, and we've got a pretty terrific culture. So you don't want to lose that.
Yeah, that's great. And you're still with William Buck as director? Is that right?
I'm actually a partner now. So in professional services, there's all these steps you go, and that was a really important step. They'd never had a partner from operations before, so another glass ceiling.
Like a consulting background, or
no, it was the same. It's very similar to what I had in the general manager role, but it was actually being seen at that peer level of the accountants and non-accountants, because there's non-accountants as partners as well, being able to do that, and it's important to show that you can take a different path and still hit those highlights, and also for the team within operations that you're not limited. As such, you can still have the same career ambitions that accountants do, though that's more clearly defined. Same for lawyers, etc. And I just think it's really important for people to see that, you can do those sort of things. And it's, definitely a bit about Slaven wanted that because it's something she didn't have. It's definitely a portion of Slaven wants that to show to the team that you can also have this. This is how you can work your way up. Don't be told there's limitations. Those ceilings aren't always, they can be glass ceilings, just break through.
Do you like to think that that's, I'm probably not, you're sure you're not this self-indulgent, but when you look at your career, you consider yourself a trailblazer?
Trailblazer. I've been first in a lot of instances. So I sound like a arsonist trailblazer.
That's right.
So probably, because I'm sure there's smoke and fire behind me at times. So maybe that's true. I think that you definitely have to be first. And I really admire women, particularly, but men who go first, and the amazing things they do, because it is hard. It's sometimes tiring, it's exhausting, and sometimes you can work really, really hard and not get there.
Yep.
And I think that's a lot to do with diversity inclusion. And I look at prejudices and things. I'm very fortunate. I have been born into a middle-class white family.
Yeah.
Yes, I've worked hard, but a lot of people work hard.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have some of those advantages that I had or have. And so we have to be really mindful of that. And I'm really grateful. But I look at history and our Indigenous First Peoples and think they didn't have that. And they're still fighting. And so I'm being a bit controversial, but I look at other areas and, I have to work harder because I'm a woman. Why? Because of my genetic coding. But imagine having that genetic coding and then coming from a different coloured background. It's like, it just stacks up. It gets harder and harder. And then you can't afford to do something. And then that's another barrier. And we put all these barriers in front of people. And what we should be doing is removing them.
Yeah.
So I want to remove them and I want to make them easier. Or even if the glass ceiling is just cracked.
Yeah.
I'll use my head, smack it and crack it a bit, and then you can go next. And I don't mind people jumping on my shoulders and going next because I want them to be more successful. And there's things that I haven't done well. And there's people who do things really well, and I just want to help others to do that. And it sounds very altruistic, but it's really important because it's really hard to be what you can't see.
Yeah.
And you just need that support sometimes of going, do it. We got your back.
Yeah.
And if you succeed, we've still got your back. And if you don't succeed, we've really got your back.
Yeah.
So you're not alone, because it can be quite lonely as well being first.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I think that's such an important ingredient of leadership is giving people those opportunities and supporting people, role modelling, and bringing people through to create that opportunity, because often people don't know they've got that potential.
Yeah, and sometimes you just don't get it right. So I don't want people to think that I get it right all the time, because I don't. And there'll be people saying, oh, she didn't do that for me. And I probably didn't.
Yeah.
But it's not from a lack of will. And hopefully that I learn along the way. And there's some great lessons I've learned along the way. But I also try and share that. And that's why I'm having these pretty frank conversations with you. It's not all joyous and it's not all rise. You know, there's sad times that come with it as well, or, frustration and, things that I still want, as such. So, I think sometimes wanting more or being curious, there's a never-ending want.
Yes.
And is that a good thing?
An unquenchable thirst, I think.
That's correct. Yes. Part vampire.
Yeah, that's right. In 2018, so 6 years ago, do my maths, 6 years ago, you took some interest in non-exec and chair roles. So Crime Stoppers.
Well, again, it all ties in. I know it doesn't look like it ties in, but it does tie in. So I had been on Vic ICT for women because I said I really wanted to be on boards. And then I actually applied through a government website for a NED with health. Yeah. And I got an interview and they said to me, would you work in a public hospital? I said, I'd love to. And they said, have you ever heard of the Austin? And I said, yes, I have. Yeah. Used to work there. Would you go back? Yes, I would.
Yeah, right.
And so Austin came first. I know, what are the chances?
I assume that you kind of decided to kind of go back full circle.
No.
Wow.
No. So that wasn't my choice. That was the department's and fantastic. Loved it. And it's so different. I had never been back.
Yeah.
After I left, I'd never been back. There were new buildings. Yeah. It's fantastic. And then when I joined Austin Health, they said we have lots of partnerships, and they said the spinal research is looking for a representative from Austin Health, and I was just so excited because I'd worked in the spinal unit, And I'd worked with a glorious man by the name of Associate Professor Doug Brown. And he'd founded this institute. Anyway, I thought, I wonder if he'll let me have a go. And he did, and I joined that board. And about 6 months later, I don't know how, I'm not sure I stepped forward, but everybody stepped back or wheeled back. And I became the chair of the Spinal Research Institute, which I'm still on today.
Yeah.
And I really love, because that's a part of the diversity inclusion. If you think it's hard for a white female, try being in a chair as well. So, and we've got to do better there. So really passionate about that. And that I was so happy, just muddling her along. And Emmbr is really supportive. They encourage us to do things.
Fantastic.
And that's brilliant.
So that's the culture you were talking about earlier, in terms of being an organisation that almost pushes you out to make new connection and follow your passions. Yeah,
so we're encouraged to be out and about in the community and be involved. And then so I stopped with the Vic ICT for women. Fantastic. And then I got a call from a recruiter, said, we've got a role we'd like interest in. I said, look, I'm not looking for one at the moment. And they said, no worries. Would you like to come in and talk about it? Because someone has recommended you. It's something we think you'd be interested in, and it's community-based. So I thought, okay. And it was Crime Stoppers Victoria. Right. And I am interested and I am passionate. I want people in the environment to be safe. And anyway, I joined Crime Stoppers Victoria.
I was trying to think about your time at WorkSafe, where you talked about public service. You're kind of back there now, aren't you?
Yeah.
But in a different capacity.
Yeah, my mum and dad were big into community service, and I think we've always been that way as well. I mean, I don't have kids, so that makes it easier because I don't have a family. Yeah. I can use my time differently. Yeah. And some of these board roles are quarterly, so they're less intensive. Yeah. Austin is not. But, and that got quite intense during COVID, as you can imagine. But it's a way of giving back. And if I can help, and I do believe in that, I want people to be safe, and I want them to be able to let, someone know anonymously that there's something going on and they can have help. And I grew up again in a middle class culture. Yeah. I did not come from a culture or a country where the police and the army were the problem. Yeah. So when we look at culturally and linguistically diverse, backgrounds, I can see why they don't go to the police, because the police were the problem. Not saying our police are, but there's an inherent mistrust. And so having Crime Stoppers Victoria or any Crime Stoppers there is a great thing, because their story or their information can be heard, and there's not those repercussions as such, and that really helps. And all those little bits of information can be used by the police, without knowing who gave that information. Yep. They can pull it all together. And so I think it's a really important thing, and I think VicPol does a fantastic job, but also the Crime Stoppers does a great supporting job because they are trusted.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, great. When you're sitting on the board, do you these board roles, do you kind of find they lean on you from a technology perspective?
Sometimes, but it's just different things. And it's quite funny, because the first role at Crime Stoppers, they talked a lot about SCIs, and I'm thinking, ooh, spinal cord injuries. Right. But they're not spinal cord injuries, they're serious crime incidences. Right. So different acronyms for different groups. Yeah. So you have to learn the language, which is quite good, because otherwise it can get a bit confusing. But you do use that and all those other skills. And you think about, the triaging, what's the priority for Crime Stoppers? Why are we doing that? What impact is it going to have? They're a not-for-profit. Where do we spend our money wisely? How does it help? So it's still the same foundations. You're asking the same questions. And again, it's still all about people.
Yes, yeah. But it's interesting there, isn't it? Because you've got the diversity of the boards. You say you're thinking about triage in Crime Stoppers, which is great. This is exactly why you're in that role, because you're bringing a different perspective rather than that kind of groupthink.
Well, I think you need to have really different groups in any board. You need to have a diversity of thought as such, and just people to ask why, or I sit on the executive at Emmbr too, and they're all accountants, And it's fantastic because sometimes they'll ask a question and my number one answer hasn't rated in their top 20.
Yeah.
And their number one answer wasn't in mine.
Yeah.
So that's a fantastic thing. And then we talk through why, and it's just we've got three actually at the moment, 3 females on the executive and 4 guys. 5. And we've just changed, so it's not that I didn't know who was on it. And it's fantastic because a good mixture of male, female, diversity of roles, they're different industries, myself as well, and that brings different perspectives. Doesn't mean you're right. You can give feedback, but it just gets sometimes you have to think and they have to think about something different.
Yeah, it's great. Yeah, good. Thank you. I'm going to ask you a few more kind of broad questions about your career.
Okay.
So my first question, what are you most proud of in your career?
I'm very proud that I was able to leave nursing and go to technology.
Yeah.
I've been able to do some career changes. I probably have another one in me, I think. I don't know what it is or when.
Okay.
But I love that against all the diversity and adversity, I was able to do something different. Yeah, I'm pretty proud of that.
I saw in 2014 you were named Australian ICT Woman of the Year.
Yes.
Where does that kind of rank in your achievements?
Well, it's lovely. Who doesn't like a glass plaque?
Yeah.
And I am very proud of that because a friend of mine asked me to apply for the Victorian Award, and I did. I said no originally, and then she said, well, if everybody said no, how will they know what's going on? And this is a great platform to do other things. So I did. I did apply, and I was there. I remember going and thinking, oh, look at all these people, and they announced all the nominees, and it was all very exciting. And I turned to a friend and I said, this is really exciting. And they've got champagne to celebrate afterwards. This is going to be a great evening. And once she's announced, we should go and introduce ourselves and get her to speak at Go Girl Go for IT. So already I was thinking in my head, let's get her as a speaker. We're going to do that. And they named me. And I didn't have, any clue whatsoever.
Yeah, right.
So, and I always joke about it. When I received the award, I can't remember who gave it to me, but it's someone very senior from the department in government. And I hit him up for some funding for Go Girl while I was sort of accepting my award. Said, I'm going to come and see you now about this. So that was quite funny, and that was Victoria. And then you automatically get put into an Australian category.
Yeah.
And I did. And this time I was going, and I thought, yep. And my husband said, I'll come with you. It was a bit of a dinner dance sort of thing. And he came and saw me, and he'll be embarrassed that I'll tell this story, but I'm going to anyway. He said, look, I've looked at the competitors, and there's some amazing women in there. And I said, I know. And there is a woman, her name's Dr. Janine Beekhuizen. So hi, Janine, to out there. She's an amazing woman who does, based in Queensland, who does work with girls as well, of encouraging them into IT, but lots of other things, academic, brilliant. And he said, I don't think so. And I said, I don't think so either. And I said, but what a great opportunity, we'll get to meet. And it was, we're sitting in an auditorium, and he goes, well, we've got to come and see and what it's all about. And then I was announced as the winner. My jaw dropped, and Janine was actually behind us, and we actually know each other. And she came to Go Girl, and she's spoken so many times, and it was just a door opener. So yes, it's a proud moment, but it was an opportunity to leverage. I see it as an award, but many people got me there, just a forefront of that.
Yeah.
But it opened doors. I used it saying, as Australian ICT Woman of the Year, why wouldn't they want to talk to about Go Girl Go for IT?
Exactly right.
Or why wouldn't they want to talk about diversity and inclusion?
Yeah.
Or why aren't we having these conversations? So really it was a bit of a tool. but I am proud of it, and it is at home. So there, but ultimately, awards aren't the reason I do stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. Look, and I get that from our conversation. You're clearly when you're very passionate about something, even getting your award and pitching for funds, you're going to be unstoppable about that. But the plaudits are important along the way, I think. And say if you use it as a door opener or an enabler to further your cause, that's even more powerful.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they wouldn't want that happening again. But you use the opportunities when you can. So,
definitely.
And we did get funding, so you
know. Last couple of questions. We're shaped by the feedback that we receive as we kind of go through our journey. What's the most significant feedback you've received?
I get so much feedback, and it depends who it's from. And there are times that I get feedback. I'm too loud, I'm too bossy, I'm too stubborn, and all there's no doubt. But you don't call men loud, bossy and stubborn, just women, which drives me insane. I am very passionate, and there's at times that I am a force to be reckoned with, so I don't always see that peripheral side, which is about the emails, which is true. So you need someone to temper that down at times. I can get excited about stuff, and I can excite people, which is great because when you've got volunteers, you want to, but you also need to know when people are exhausted or don't have the energy to keep going. So I can tire people.
Yep.
So I need to realise when people are tired or change has exhausted them and we need to slow down for a bit. That's good feedback.
That's because you've got boundless energy yourself?
When I want to. There's times I'm lying on the couch with a glass of wine as well. Don't be fooled. But I think if I'm really excited about something, that's like an Energizer bunny for me.
Yeah, great. What singular piece of sage advice would you give to the next generation?
Don't listen to sagely advice. Try and be authentic. Try and be you. Not everything's going to be perfect. It's not an Instagram story. That's not all real. There's going to be highs and lows, and there's going to be sideways, and there's going to be backwards. And that's okay. But you don't have to settle, and if you do, try and get help so you don't have to settle. And if you're generally unhappy, why are you staying somewhere that's unhappy? I'd rather be paid less if you can afford it and be happier. But then I understand that people have to pay mortgages and bills, so what will make you a bit happier? It's finding those even small things. And because sometimes I'm a bit of a control freak, what small elements of control will get you to that place? So, there's no magic answer. If there was, we'd all be doing it. I don't think we can have it all at one time, but, do what you can and then do what you can next time and just keep chugging away.
Yeah, great. You said earlier when you did the exec coaching that you set some goals, and it sounds like you ticked most of them off. What's on your goals at the moment?
I really have a goal to be on an ASIC publicly listed board. So I'm on fantastic boards. They're community-based. Two of them are not-for-profit and I volunteer as such. But I would really like to be on a different type of board, and I'm certainly keen to do that. And it's a lot about knowing people and getting recommended. But I think I have skills and the qualifications, and I've put time in. So it's convincing people. See, I've still got to convince people, and I've still got to work through groups, and they're in layers that I'm not necessarily working within, but I would like to do that.
Yeah, great.
So
final question's a bit nicer.
No, that was a good question.
How about your own personal development? Sort of what books do you listen to? What do you listen to? Do you read? Which podcasts do you listen to? What's your poison?
It's funny because I read eclectically, because I read between health and financial, but in tech and those sort of things. But I also go by recommendations. So a completely biased recommendation is a book called The Secure Board, and written by Claire Pales and Anna Leibel. I know both those ladies.
Yeah, I do too.
But I just think they're amazing.
Yeah.
And Anna is just such a force to be reckoned with. And I think it's a really great book. So, you know, that breaks it down, and every board should be reading that. So it's important. You can't say, I don't understand tech, I'll leave that to someone else on the board. You have to actually uplift your skills. If you do the AICD course, in the olden days it was mainly accounting and things like that, but it's a lot to do with security now. So you have to upskill yourself. So we should be using those sort of resources to do that.
Yeah, great. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Look, thanks for your time.
Thanks for having me.
It's been an insightful journey from ICU to where we are today. And it's, I feel like I've taken so much from this. So thank you.
Thanks for having me. It's been great.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thank you for listening to Tales from Tech Titans, and be sure to follow us wherever you get your podcast. If you'd like to get more insights about tech careers, then check out the Emmbr, that's EMMBR LinkedIn page for the latest updates, articles, and engaging discussions.